Spring training is less than 2 weeks away. You're excited about it. I'm excited about it. Parker's excited about it. We're all excited about it here at Late Night Baseball because this is what we do. We're talking baseball. Spring training's not even here yet, Parker, and I have never been itching for baseball more than I am today, and the Super Bowl's not even over yet.
Yeah, Super Bowl's not even over. It can go ahead and be over. I don't really care. 50 days until opening day, less than 2 weeks to spring training. As we speak, we have 4 days until the Cubs become the first team to have pitchers and catchers report. Time for baseball, dude. Baseball season is now. We're here.
Oh, here we go. Let's do it. We are moving on with our division previews this week. We're going to be stopping in the NL East, a fun one. We're going to talk about what we think is in store for the NL East this year. But Parker, it's been a crazy week of baseball news as we creep up here to spring training. First and foremost, the Tigers are active and they are showing they're serious in the AL Central with some signing or with a signing.
Absolutely. The thing with this Tigers team, and what you allude to primarily, is the Jack Flaherty 2-year deal. It's a $35 million deal over the course of the 2 years. He'll earn $25 million in 2025, and it is an opt-out. He has the opt-out after that first season if he wants to go to that second season. Kind of just another one of those 1-year insurance deals that we've seen a few times as we see people start signing later and later in spring training. But like you said, the Tigers are here. They understand that right now is kind of their window because Tarek Skubal is not going to be around forever, and you kind of need to win while you have that guy. And there's no reason he won't just hit free agency. Like if Tarek Skubal doesn't hit free agency, if he does sign like an extension, it's going to be at market value. It's going to be in the $400 to $500 million I think range, at least personally, I think range, $400 million is almost a hometown discount for him. So you got to win now. You got to win while you have him. You bring in Jack Flaherty. You know what he can do, especially in that ballpark. Pitchers like pitching in Comerica. Crazy how one of the worst hitters parks in baseball is something that's pretty attractive to pitching. So yeah, good for the Tigers. You got to win right now. You got to do it. So go sign somebody. Honestly, right now he's the best available. I'd say he'd be at the time of signing. He's the best available starting pitcher. The Tigers are also in on guys like Alex Bregman. So it looks like they are ready to roll, and it looks like they're trying to beef up their roster to do so.
Yeah, they sure are. When you look at that rotation, when you have it led by Skubal, you have Flaherty, you also have some younger guys, Reese Olson and Casey Mize in there. That's a rotation that's probably going to surprise some folks, and I'm looking forward to talking about the AL Central because I really do see them for the first time in a while being a competitive team, but we'll kind of put a pin in that for later. But I want to go back to Alex Bregman here, Parker, because Alex Bregman we've heard him being in talks with the Red Sox, the Blue Jays, the Tigers, and wow, is his market just dragged on and on and on. I would like to think the Tigers become the natural spot for him with the AJ Hinch connection, them wanting to go all in, needing another bat. Like Tigers, just get the guy, just get him.
It really does shape up to look like that's where he's headed. I don't think that's where he would want to go. I don't think any hitter. It's the exact opposite, right? Like Jack Flaherty's like, yeah, we'll go pitch in Comerica. That sounds great for my ERA. Well, Alex Bregman also he knows he has like a 715, 720 career OPS in Comerica Park. And that's pretty common among hitters that go play for Detroit. Now, is the prospect of becoming the clubhouse leader for a team full of amazing young talent that is really hitting a couple year long championship window here, something that intrigues him? I'm sure absolutely it does. And when you look at the other teams that are in on him, we talk about a team that already replaced him in the Astros, and a team that really hasn't made what seems like a compelling offer in the Red Sox. And then there's the Blue Jays, who are always there and never get the payoff of actually signing a free agent, except unless you're Anthony Santander. So I think that Alex Bregman, the stars seem to be aligning for him to end up in Detroit. And that to me might be the most volatile landing spot. Like we know that he would go to Toronto, and I think he would be like a very good player on an okay team. If he were to go to the Red Sox, I think he makes them a World Series contender. But with the Tigers, what's going to happen? They could make the World Series. That's the ceiling, I think. But then the floor is like bombing out of the AL Central. And I think he knows that and is a little bit afraid of that volatility, but it is interesting, makes for good TV.
It is interesting. I mean, I go back to, and I often have to remind myself of where these Tigers were at the end of last year. Like, they were in the playoffs. They did it, putting together a pitching staff of a bunch of no-name guys and a bullpen that pitched most of the innings, right? So when you have guys like Tarek Skubal who's still going to be on top of that, you add the Flaherty, you add some folks you hope stay healthy next year, then all of a sudden you look a lot different going into the playoffs, right? Then you look a lot more reliable. And if you give me the Tigers last year with a couple more solid arms like they have now, I'm making some more bets on that team. So like if you add a
Absolutely.
Bregman, like you got to go all in for a Bregman. But Parker, I don't sleep on the Red Sox though, because I think you bring up a good point. Like I love the prospect of Bregman on the Red Sox right now. I think that makes them just leaps and bounds better, and they can use a right-handed bat.
Absolutely. The Red Sox lineup is already very lefty heavy. It does introduce a lot of variance into what the lineup's going to look like if you sign a third baseman in Boston, but not quite
Mm,
as volatile as if the Red Sox were to bring on like a Nolan Arenado, which has been in the media again recently because apparently someone
yeah.
heard someone talking about how they contacted about Arenado again. I think at the end of the day, the Red Sox want, or at least a lot of the people in the Red Sox and the fans certainly want Alex Bregman. He would play primarily second base, maybe some third base, and he's going to rake because he hits well at Fenway Park and the Green Monster's made for him. I just think that I worry from a Red Sox fan perspective that they're kind of overplaying their hand and overplaying their leverage a little bit with him. They haven't, what seems like, made a competitive offer in terms of something that will beat the other teams. I think they're banking on the fact that he would like to play in Boston, maybe just for statistics and to get himself maybe one more contract. And I think they're banking on him taking a bit of a discount because the season is about to start. I mean, Alex Bregman doesn't know where he's staying. Like people, players talk about this. One of the first things you hear players talk about when they get signed to a new team is how they hit up people on that team and find out, hey, where do people stay for spring training? What apartments do they rent for spring training on this team? And Alex Bregman does not know where he will be attending spring training. And I think that that's something that is going to start playing a factor. Like there's going to be a sense of urgency. I'm sure he's in great shape. He's a Boris client, so he's got, Boris's version of Driveline he can go to if he needs to stay in shape. But
Yeah.
I think Alex Bregman needs two things. Number one, to get paid what he thinks is a fair wage, and also he wants to win. Like Alex Bregman already has 2 World Series rings, and from what it seems from his outlook on this free agency, he wants to win more. And he's the kind of
Mm-hmm.
competitor that seems like he wants to win more. So personally, I'd like to see him on the Red Sox. Obviously, I'm biased when it comes to that, but I think there's a lot of people too that would, if you're an Alex Bregman guy, and the Astros cheating scandal may have adjusted how many of those there are, but it'd be interesting to see
Yeah.
how many rings he would be able to win in Boston.
Well, he is late to the party. Like you said, spring training is coming up. This guy doesn't have a home. But I'll tell you what, Parker, who just got a home minutes ago is Pete Alonso, who finally, for the love of all that is holy, signed back with the Mets. It was in the stars. This took forever. It's kind of maddening, but the Mets needed this, and so did Pete Alonso.
You made a great point in when I texted you the tweet as we were getting set up for the pod, and you said, "Yep, absolutely, they both needed this," and you're right, they both needed this. I think the Mets fans needed it, and I think Pete Alonso needed it. It's one of those deals where it's a prove it. It's another 1 year prove it deal. It's 2 years total with an opt out after the first year. The first year is $30 million. The second year is $24 million, $54 million guaranteed before incentives. I think that it says a lot that a guy like Jack Flaherty gets a significant discount in that second year, which for people who don't track this stuff habitually, if you get a 2 year deal with an opt out after the first year, a player opt out, it is I want to hit free agency again year. If I have a really good year, I'm being compensated fairly for that really good year. And then I sign a contract along those same lines for longer years at the next team destination. The second year of that contract is kind of a way of putting a value on what the team signing you thinks is your floor to me. And
Mm-hmm.
when Pete Alonso's floor is at $24 million compared to the 30 he would make in a ideally very productive season, but then Jack Flaherty's floor is is $10 million compared to the 25 he would be getting paid in that Prove It season. It's like, okay, so we recognize that Jack Flaherty is a more higher variance guy, or at least in the eyes of the Tigers, he's more variance than Pete Alonso is in the eyes of the Mets. And I think it's telling because Pete Alonso has a lot of value in New York, and I think he has more value in New York than he does anywhere else. And weirdly
Mhm.
enough, this one-in-one opt out deal seems to even reflect that to Pete Alonso from the Mets.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to diving into the Mets here in our division preview because I think there's a lot to be said about pairing Soto and Alonso together. I mean, I was always concerned Soto was kind of out on this island by himself, no protection, and just
That
like
changed
that,
overnight.
it changed.
Yeah.
It did, and the Mets needed it, but we'll circle back on that here in a little bit. Before we go into our division preview, we got to talk about, and I know this isn't baseball related, folks, but we're all sports fans here. We have to talk about the trade that was heard around the world this last week, where Luka Doncic was traded from the Dallas Mavericks to the LA Lakers in exchange for Anthony Davis. Uh, I don't even know where to start with this other than I immediately Parker was like, "All right, what would this be in baseball terms?" But for you,
Yeah.
you're more basketball fan than I am. Like, what the hell were you thinking when you heard this?
I couldn't believe that it happened. And the reason I wanted to bring it up on here is because this is an interesting scenario where people are calling this maybe the most surprising trade in NBA history. And it's kind of like trading a superstar, like a top 5 player in the game for what equates to a bag of peanuts. Um, and Anthony Davis deserves better than I just gave him, honestly. He deserves better than the bag of peanuts, but he is an aging veteran. He is a known quantity. And Luka Doncic is 25 years old. So I was curious and I was thinking, and what I brought up in our text chain was, who do you think, what do you think is the comparable trade in MLB baseball? And I think after thinking about it, for a while, and I wasn't going to go with this because I saw it on Twitter, but I agree with it so heavily, and I don't remember where I saw it. But I agree with this so heavily that I think that it's perfect. If you were to trade Bryce Harper right now in return for Fernando Tatis Jr., so you have the older, more established, known quantity, probably on the back half declining part of his career in Bryce Harper, trading for one of the young phenoms, superstars, Gold Glove outfielder, converted from shortstop, like just an absolute electric factory of a human being with nothing but the world in front of him and no ceiling in sight. I think that would be a pretty comparable trade. So if you're wondering, what does this mean? Well, these are two incredibly talented players, one of them that is on the rise, one of them on the decline. And I think that if you traded Fernando Tatis Jr. to the Phillies in exchange for Bryce Harper, that'd be probably the closest we could get.
It's an interesting comparison because of just the nature of these two sports. Like I'm almost thinking about when you say that, I think about all right, what is the impact that a Bryce Harper would have on the Padres and Tatis would have on the Phillies? But it's like it's just different in basketball. Like to have a
Right.
player like Luca on your team is so much more immensely valuable on with 5 men on a court than it is with Bryce Harper being one of the 26 on the pod. It's just a
Yeah.
different calculus. But it, this is
Yes.
why a move like this, I think, in basketball is just so much more impactful. It makes you wonder, just from a Dallas Mavericks perspective, like what else was going on here that this
Yeah.
that this happened. Like, there's so many questions. As me, someone who's not as into basketball, was doing research on this and looking into it. I'm left from just like a front office standpoint, going, what was the play here? Like, what led up to this? It's
Well,
weird. It's weird.
that's why I think that Fernando Tatis Jr. is the good comparison too, because we've seen an environment where he has gotten suspended for PED use. He has
Mm,
gotten in public vocal arguments with Manny Machado, who is not, he doesn't wear a C on his chest, but he's kind of the de facto captain of this team, or at least it seems like it from a 10,000 foot view. I think that's why this is such a good comparison, because what would it mean to a lineup like San Diego? Would it actually be a situation where they feel like that they gained by getting rid of a cancer, or would it be a
mm.
situation where it's like, why did we just give away one of our best players for somebody on the decline? And yeah, I don't know. I think it's almost 1-to-1, genuinely. Like you said, impact is different in baseball for a one player perspective, but I think it's pretty interesting to look at it from that angle.
So, last thing I'll say about it though is this is where this is where I get most confused. In sports, what's the number one goal for every team in every sport ever? Win championships, get to a
Yep.
championship. I feel so hard. I have two places in my heart right now. The left ventricle is filled with all the Oakland Athletic fans, and the right ventricle is filled with all the Dallas Mavericks fans. Because how the hell do you trade your best player after that player helps you get to the championship? That is absurd on the face. Just that alone is shocking.
Yeah, it seems like they were worried about his conditioning and conditioning habits, and
Oh,
there's a whole lot of stuff going on there. When they made the finals, one of the VPs of the team like came and took a beer out of his hand on camera while he was trying to just sit there and enjoy making it to the finals. And there's been not public because I think both sides have been somewhat classy in how they've gone about it, but not very public. But definitely, I think some drama there in the
oof.
Doncic / Mavericks camps.
Man, oh man. It's I'll tell you what though, Parker, between like following baseball as intently as I do personally and all of the football I follow, I just have a hard time having any other bandwidth to follow basketball any in depth. I just don't have the bandwidth at football and baseball. I can't do it.
Yeah, I get that. I follow football and baseball pretty obsessively. I follow basketball from like the playoffs onward, and then I follow hockey from approximately the day the Broncos get eliminated from the football season until spring training starts. So,
Well, you're covered all year round, and that's really what matters at
exactly.
the end of the day.
Exactly.
Uh, all right, folks, we're continuing on this evening with our division preview series. We're actually wrapping up the National League today, talking about the NL East, which in its own right is a very, very exciting division. It has been, and it will continue to be for the foreseeable future. What we are going to do, like we do each and every week for these previews, is we're going to go ahead and talk through each team, kind of what we expect, what we're excited for in 25 for these teams. We're going to give you our division standing predictions and then a couple, maybe one or two bold predictions for the NL East in 2025. Parker, first impressions on the NL East in 2025. What is really standing out to you when you think about this division?
To me, the word that I think sums up the division is movement. Like, there's going to be a shuffling. Oh, like maybe there won't be. Maybe it won't be a crazy shuffling, but the division's going to look a lot different in 2025 than it did in 2024. If only for the fact that there are plenty of players returning from injury, plenty of players, or at least a significant big player joining the division. And I think that plays into a really cool narrative where it's not up to any team in the division, because there's two that I think are definitely on the outside looking in. But there are three teams in this division that any one of them running away with it would genuinely not be that much of a surprise. And we could seriously be in for a 3-team dogfight to the end of the season. And we could very easily see 3 teams from this division make the playoffs.
We could very well. That's been the mission for this division over the last several years. Last year, of course,
Yeah.
Phillies led the pack. You had the Phillies win that division, and the Braves and the Mets found themselves in the playoffs via the wild card. Like you're saying, the high likelihood of that happening, I would say, pretty high. But let's go in alphabetical order. Let's start with the Braves, and I guess I'll start with the Braves this way, Parker. We know Braves fans. We have Braves fans in our lives. Shout out to shout out to I
Our
feel
friend
so bad.
Caroline.
Shout out to Caroline. Oh, I feel so
Yep.
bad just saying it because she
She
feels so
listens. She listens.
strongly. She's a listener. We love her. We love that she's a Braves fan, and we feel her pain because Parker, this offseason, the Braves have seemingly not done the crucial things to fortify their team that has suffered some losses over this offseason, and a team that has some holes more in the rotation in their lineup than they've had in previous years. And I just don't understand the calculus right now for them.
I think the Braves are in a weird position where they think they're good enough when everybody's at full strength that they can afford the loss. And that's strange because not a lot of teams that have historically behaved like the Braves end up turning into that later on, because the Braves have been this team that we've seen extend them early, extend them for a long time, lock them into this lineup. Let's build a culture. Let's get these players together and create a winning habit together. And with the exodus of talent that we've seen over the off season, it's hard to be entirely optimistic about the team, especially when you look at Fangraphs and we look at the projected numbers for this team going into next season. It's like, wow, it's going to be they're expecting more of the same. They're expecting a lot out of some players that I don't think we're going to get a lot from.
Hmm.
And it's certainly going to be interesting because you're not going to get a 154 OPS plus or WRC plus out of Marcell Ozuna again. I genuinely don't think that's going to happen. Um,
Hmm.
he's getting up there in age. He had an incredibly productive season when nobody saw it coming last season. We kind of all expected him to start declining more last season. But that being said, maybe you do get more out of a guy like Matt Olson. Maybe you get more out of Austin Riley. Michael Harris probably has higher ceiling than a 99 WRC plus last season. So like, yeah, the ceiling's there, but like you said, the real decimation comes on the pitching staff, and I just don't know if they have the means to overcome it.
I don't think so. And I think the variability for them is crazy because like you said, it is a matter of everything clicking. But the way in which it clicked in previous seasons looks a lot different because clicking now means that you have to have a healthy, effective, high strikeout per 9 inning Spencer Strider. You need a
Yep.
40-40 season out of Ronald Acuna, and he's got to be healthy. And you need Matt Olson to have a rebound, like you said, or like you said, you had Michael Harris needs to take a step forward. Hopefully, Azuna has it still. Like that's a lot of things that need to go right. And this is for a team, Parker, that took a huge step back last year in their offense. Last year, they were middle of the pack, 15th in MLB in runs, okay? 15th in average. This is a team over the last handful of seasons you saw in the top five in runs and average. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
just, I get very concerned with them that you're banking on having all these things click. We know the odds of that are not very likely. And guess what? Guess who's over your shoulder here tapping on you? And that's the Mets. That's the Mets and the Phillies. They're not going anywhere. They're just not. And I think last year was probably a wake up call for the Braves. Clearly, maybe not enough, but a wake up call to say, hey, you're not the powerhouse in the NL East that you used to be. You're just not.
I agree. I can't help but agree. Their number one offensive player last year was Marcell Ozuna. Like I said, I don't think you can count on that moving forward. I think Matt Olson, I mean, he's one, like we said before, he's one of those guys, he could just hit 50 home runs next year. It wouldn't surprise anybody.
Yep.
Austin Riley needs to actually be the Austin Riley we've become accustomed to this upcoming season. And then it's all gambles. It's all gambles from them right now because you're really gambling on, like you said, Michael Harris taking a step forward. You're gambling on Sean Murphy not having a 78 WRC plus next season. You're gambling
Oof.
on Ronald Acuna Jr. coming back and having a Ronald Acuna Jr. season after having a second torn ACL in 3 seasons. Granted, he tore his ACL and then went 40-70 the next season. So we know he can do it. It's
Sure.
just you can't count on him, on anybody doing that. Ozzy Albies needs to hit better than below league average like he did last season. Jared Kelenic technically has room to grow. He had an 86 WRC plus last season, but you're not counting on that. They just signed Jurickson Profar. Is he going to be the guy that he was last year? I just don't know. But they are gambling on all those things. And to be fair, of those, 4 or 5 guys I just mentioned, if 2 of them pan out, this lineup
Yeah.
completely changes complexion.
Correct.
And that changes the face of the entire organization. I mean, look at Gio Urshela, Whit Merrifield, Jorge Soler had a 135 or WRC plus last season. There's names and there's people here who can play some good ball. It's almost like they're deep but shallow because all of their depth, like at the catcher position with Travis d'Arnaud is obviously not going to be there. The catcher position last year with Travis d'Arnaud and Sean Murphy didn't really materialize into much because both of them were below league average hitters. And then when you
Mm.
look at the rest of their lineup, what's going to happen? You lose Jorge Soler to the Angels, you lose Travis d'Arnaud to the Angels. A lot of this stuff starts changing, and who knows? Who knows what's going to happen?
I mean, to be clear, just so I'm clear, it I'm not saying that the Braves have taken this humongous step back. What I'm saying, and I'm not saying they're not a good team. What I'm saying is the Braves of the last 3 to 4 years were the top of the National League, right
Mm-hmm.
next to the Dodgers, the top dog. Last year was a reality check for me personally when I thought, "Oh shit, this team isn't invincible." Like we saw them at their worst. If you just look at the paper, look at this lineup, it's a good team. There's good players. There's talent all up and down this lineup. Yeah, don't
Yes.
get me wrong. I would love someone out in right field besides Jared Kelnick. I would love someone at shortstop that's not Orlando Arcia. Yeah, there's much to be desired there, but for face value, I mean, this is a great lineup. I just last year for me got me tugging at my collar a little bit, thinking, "Oh shoot, it could not work out," and they didn't reinforce this lineup and let alone their bench enough to have some insurance around it not working out.
Yeah. So, and I don't know everything there is to know about the Braves. And if you're listening and you're a Braves fan, you know this team better than we do. So,
Yeah.
absolutely, send us messages, get in the comments, and talk about what we're missing here. But when I look at Fangraphs, pull up roster resource, and switch to their pitching, and sort by games started last year, their most games started last year was by Charlie Morton, then Chris Sale, who won the Cy Young, and then Max Fried. And Max Fried and Charlie Morton are no longer on this ball club.
Problem.
So that's a lot of innings to fill. Now, what are
Yep.
you planning on doing? Well, Spencer Strider's going to be back, but you can't count on 29, 30 starts from a Spencer Strider coming straight off of Tommy John surgery. And, I don't know, actually, Reynaldo Lopez, I know a little about him. He made 25 starts last year, 135 and 2/3 innings pitched. He was absolutely incredible from an ERA perspective. He had a 1.99 over the season. He was great. He was up there with some of the best pitchers in baseball. At the beginning of the season, people were convinced he was going to make a run at the Cy Young Award. I'm in on him. I think he's going to have a good season. I think you can pencil him in if he stays healthy for like 30 starts. But where'd Bryce Elder go? Did he fall off the face of the earth? Do you know more about him than I do?
So Bryce Elder, I'm pretty sure was picked up by the Brewers. Let me look it up. I'm pretty sure
Okay.
he was. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Let's see. Bryce Elder. I
Atlanta Braves.
thought
It says Google says Atlanta Braves.
so
Yeah.
he is on the Atlanta Braves. Okay, so but Bryce Elder's always been that guy though, who's like literally always been on the precipice and just hasn't broken through. I mean, when is enough, right? When is he finally going to? I don't know. I that
I picked him to win the Cy Young last year, man. Like I
I
thought
know.
we were
I
ready for a
know.
Bryce Elder like breakout campaign, and he could do it. He could randomly just do it. But yeah, I mean they need him to. That's the deal. He has a career 4.17 ERA. He had a 6.52 ERA last season. They need that 4.17 for 30 starts next year if this team plans on being competitive.
I mean, they're running out of options. I mean, I mean, the best people available right now, pitching wise, free agents, Andrew Heaney, Nick Pivetta. That's not inspiring. And I mean, if you want innings, maybe, but I don't know.
Right.
Like, what's Rick Ankiel doing these days? Like, well, come on, like, what are
Yeah.
we doing here? So I just like throw them a bone. I don't know, but I guess the team I'm most interested in this year in the NL East is the Braves because I want to see if this is either going to be a resurgence or B a real problem, and it's going to be one or the other.
I would lean real problem more than not. I love Chris Sale. I'm so happy he won a Cy Young Award. I don't know if you cannot count on 29 more starts from him next season. Uh,
No,
you're looking for huge steps up from Reynaldo Lopez, maybe Bryce Elder, but Spencer Schwellenbach. Like I think that he's probably someone you could hope. He made 21 starts for them last season with a 3.35 ERA. That's somebody that has upside that I think you can look at to maybe grow here moving forward. He's only 24 years old as of right now. He's going to be his age 25 season, and maybe that pans out. But like again, I just said Spencer Schwellenbach as somebody that you need to rely on to grow in order to make your team, a contender. And hopefully it works, but I'm not optimistic.
nope. I'm right there with you. Let's go down to Miami and visit the Fish, who are
For a
doing
little
their
bit.
own for a little bit. We're not going to spend much time here. I mean, we're going to spend about as much time as they do on really most anything. Those Marlins. Um, well, I don't even really know what to say here, other than with all due respect, with all due respect. Which, by the way, I say that, but then you know what I'm going to say is the exact opposite of that. But
Mm-hmm.
with all due respect, they hired the biggest nerd in the world in Peter Bendix to fix this team. And I I don't know what the strategy is. I get that he came from Tampa Bay. He came from a world-class player development, scouting, drafting organization, whatever. But they have ripped this thing down to the studs yet again, like twice, three times in the last 6 to 7 years, with seemingly no signs of life in any time in the near future. I mean, they have a few pieces in here that I'm really interested in. Your Sandy Alcantaras of the world, your Ryan Weathers, Edward Cabrera. Their rotation actually pretty solid. If you took that rotation today and put it on another team, you'd have some success potentially. Everything else though is a hot mess.
Well, I mean, you said Sandy Alcantara and then a steep fall off a cliff. Like
Yeah.
maybe Yuri Perez. I think he's coming off an injury and he's going to miss some of the season. But he's got a
Yeah.
lot of. He's a very good pitching prospect. Genuinely, Yuri Perez is a
Mm-hmm.
good pitching prospect. The Marlins are projected generously by Zips for 71 wins next season, and I don't know where they're finding the extra 21 wins.
Whoa,
But
man. You're
I
not even
have
giving
them
them 50. Oh
I
shit.
got him around like 50 to 55. I mean,
Wow.
look at okay, not to no shots fired intended, but like look at what happened in Chicago last year. This Marlins roster's worse. Like this Marlins roster is horrendous. And
Huh.
I just don't see 71 wins in Miami this year. Sandy Alcantara should be fun. He'll be fun coming off injury.
Let's run through. This is a great exercise in just math or war silliness, I should say. The war for this team, projected team on Fangraphs 1 through 9, 3 war 1.9, 2.8, 0.2, 2, 1.2, 0.8, 1.2. Oh, like that's like I
It's not a
just
lot
don't. You know what? And I feel bad for the Marlins mainly because this is a division, and I feel like 5 years ago the Orioles felt this way for the
Yep.
in the AL East. You got quite a hill to climb, and this is sink or swim time. Like if you're going to really compete, you need to go all in. You need to do it soon, in my opinion, because the likes of the Phillies and the Braves and the Mets aren't going anywhere, guys. I mean, and the Nationals are going to be right behind them soon. I hate teams finding themselves in obscurity, and it just seems to never get better with the Marlins, and it's frustrating.
for sure. There are some there are bright spots to be had when we look at a guy like Connor Norby. I'm excited to see what happens from him. Uh, like I said, Sandy Alcantara. But you bring up a good point when we talk about what the Orioles looked like leading up to this current era of young developing talent that they have. And it was shit. They looked like shit. They looked like this.
Mhm.
They looked very uncompetitive. They were winning no
Yeah.
games. And then all of a sudden, you hire a nerd and they start drafting for you. And one thing nerds can do is draft talent. When you talk about guys who have when you draft raw talent, it's a little simpler, I think, than developing it, obviously, because you draft guys with good bat speed. You get draft guys who can take close pitches and be right most of the time. You draft guys who have strong arms and speed, and you turn them from a shortstop into a right fielder, and all of a sudden you have a perennial all-star. So I make it sound super simple, but at the end of the day, these guys are looking at metrics that everybody has available to them, and
Yeah.
from what it seems, the Marlins have put themselves in a position where they have they will have the opportunity with decent draft picks to get a lot of talent into this organization as quickly as an organization, reasonably could. The lottery is going to have a lot to do with that. I actually don't know where they draft in this upcoming. I'll look that up in a second. But yeah, I mean, there's hope. They're not going to be terrible forever. They've been bad
No.
for a long time. But so were the Orioles, and that's kind of the diagram everybody's following at this point.
Yeah, yeah. And just so everyone knows, we're pro nerd on this show. No hate. We're
Oh
pro
yeah,
nerd. We love baseball nerds.
I
I
just went
think
on a
Peter
5-minute rant about how much I love Heim Bloom the other day, man.
I mean, yeah, I mean talk about the king of the nerds. I mean, at the time right there. Peter Bendix is a little different of a dude, but I'm sure he's a very nice guy. Um, but here's here's what I'll say about the Marlins. There's no point being a dead horse here. I think we both suspect that the Marlins will be the caboose here in the NL East, and we'll see kind of what happens this year. This will be a huge, like you said, alluded to, development year for the Marlins. They'll have to draft really
Oh
well. They have to
wow.
develop a lot of these guys. What'd you find?
Wow, the Marlins aren't drafting until pick 7.
This is where the
I
lottery really screws people over.
Yep, the Marlins are drafting at pick 7. I like it though because it doesn't incentivize straight tanking, which clearly the
100,
Marlins did last
100%.
season.
Yes.
And so like cool, you get an okay pick. It's the 7th pick. We've seen the 7th pick especially in baseball drafts. I mean, we've seen the 7th pick be the best pick in the draft a lot, I'm sure, if we look back at the numbers. But what's interesting when I just saw, and this is random, we didn't plan talking about this, the Nationals have the number 1 overall pick, and they're already okay. So
Yeah.
adding talent to that farm system and adding talent to that team is going to be quite interesting. Quite interesting
Yeah.
indeed.
I mean, I do love the draft lottery. I think it's actually really awesome. It adds a dynamic to the off season that is brand new and it kind of makes things a little more interesting. I'm not at all bitter that, a team can have the worst record in the history of baseball and not pick higher than 10th, but who am I? Who am I?
Absolutely.
Not
The
bitter at all.
interesting to see this draft order. It's pretty cool, especially like so. We have 3 teams. I forgot that they instituted the fact that you get a 10 pick penalty for exceeding the second threshold of the CBT, and the Dodgers, Mets, and Yankees are all getting that.
Hmm.
So interesting to see. Yeah, no, I got to dive more into this draft format because I think I have decided that this is the year that I get into college baseball in a big way, and that I watch a lot of college baseball, or at least highlights and stuff. And I think that that's going to tie really well into getting deep into the draft. So more college and more draft stuff coming from me because everybody's so tied
Nice.
into the prospect side of baseball. Everybody loves that.
Admittingly, it's an area I need to get better with and learn more about. Thank you, MLB The Show, for inspiring us
Absolutely.
to get
MLB The
into it.
Show. Okay, since you brought it up, we'll talk about it. MLB The Show adding college baseball this year is super good. And MLB The Show has been one of the things driving prospect recognition in baseball. It's one of the only things driving prospect recognition in Major League Baseball right now, especially because they'll take prospects and give them very good cards, and you start playing with them in MLB The Show. And it's like, oh, wow, this is really good. Last year, one of the best pitchers in the game for a while was Paul Skeens. And like, obviously, the guy hadn't even for a certain period there, he hadn't even played baseball in the MLB yet. So in MLB yet, sometimes it slips. But I love the fact that MLB The Show added college baseball, metal bats. That metal bat sound's going to be super cool. Bunch of different mechanics.
Ooh,
I'm
yeah.
excited. I don't want to spend too much time talking about it, but I'm excited.
No, that'll be good. That'll be good. All right, let's hop off on the Marlins. Let's go ahead and head over to the Mets. The Mets. All right, so the amazing Mets. And wow, there's a lot to really talk
A
about
lot
here
to unpack.
because a lot to unpack, Parker. I'm going to be honest with you. Last season was a surprise for everyone, right? I think it's fair to say no one expected the Mets to have the season that they did. Of course, they were still third in the division, got in with the wild card. But guys, I mean, they were tied for second in that division with the Braves. They ended up with 89 wins last season. They went on a tear multiple times last season. And when I look at the Mets, this is the first time in a long time that the Mets have overall a well-rounded, constructed team, particularly with their starting lineup. The rotation for me leaves a little bit to be desired, if I'm being
Yep.
honest. I think that's going to be um, the biggest issue for them right now. When you look at their rotation, we're looking at a rotation that's headed by Sean Manaea, who they acquired this offseason. We got Kodai Senga, Frankie Montas, who they've also acquired this offseason, left-hander David Peterson, Clay Holmes, also a newcomer to this rotation, and then
Yeah.
potentially
Newcomer to
Paul Blackburn.
starting.
True. Good point. Good point. Thanks for that catch. Newcomer to starting. This is one of those things where I don't want to be looking at this team in June and July and going, oh, well, they got Juan Soto and Pete Alonso's back, but that damn pitching ain't doing it for them. Because I think if it's going to be anything that screws them over in 25, it's going to be the pitching.
Absolutely. When you look at their projected, I'm looking at the Zips projection on Fangraphs right now, which thanks to you, I am a Fangraphs dude these days. I've been all over
Yeah.
Fangraphs. Their top 5 starting pitchers right now projected WAR total is Clay Holmes with 2.2, which I think just taking any converted reliever and turning him into basically the number 1 on the team is very bold.
Yeah.
So, I mean, good luck to him. I hope it all works out, but they got him at projected 2.2 WAR, and that's the number 1 spot. Because it's Kodai Senga with 2.1, David Peterson 1.7, Sean Manaea 1.6, and Tyler McGill 1.3. Like, this is scary. This is super scary for a team that really needs their pitching to pan out miraculously. There's nothing left on the market for them. There's nothing left for them to add. I don't know what their minor leagues look like, but nobody's counting on minor leaguers coming up and really heading up a rotation. So it's these guys. This is what you have, and hopefully it works out. I think Kodai Senga has a higher ceiling than he's shown in the last 2 years. I think he's got a lot of really nasty stuff. We got to see if he stays healthy. But I mean, nobody on this staff is projected to pitch more than 144 innings next season. I think that's really going to hurt them.
I think you're right there. I mean, you look at their innings pitch leaders last season. Obviously, Severino's on top of that list at 182 innings. Manaea was right after that at 181, and then you had Jose Quintana, who very sneakily gave them 170 innings last year.
Yeah,
like that's insane. I mean, I don't know that they've backfilled the sheer innings count that they're losing for starters. But if you look at that rotation, and I don't wish this on anybody, but let's just say for sake of example, you get into May and you end up losing a Montas who has an injury history, quite an extensive one, and you lose Clay Holmes because he's just not performing in the rotation. Say you lose those 2 guys because of injury, and then one didn't work out. Where the hell are you going after that?
You go to Paul Blackburn and Griffin Canning is where you go.
Yes. Griffin Canning.
That's what you have.
Yes.
That's who you have in the wings, man. Griffin Canning, Paul Blackburn, Jake Tidwell. Like, it's not great.
Hey, kids show. Relax.
It's not great, but I mean, looking at this projections list, there's people here we recognize. Not anybody that's gonna blow you away, but if you have 5 guys that can pitch to a 4 ERA, you have a good chance of winning when your lineup is headed up by a guy who's projected to have a 166 WRC plus next season.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a second, because it is a good point. Like, at what point does the offense make up for your rotation that is going to give up a solid amount of runs? And that is, I think, what Carlos Mendoza, their manager, really is going to have to grapple with, because you need to get your offense averaging more than 4.8 runs a game. You need to get them through 7 or 8 innings and get to that back of their bullpen where you can have AJ Minter and Edwin Diaz shut that shit down. Now, in my opinion, not really an effective way to strategize each and every ball game. If I have to rush to get to inning 7 or 8, not a great way to live on a day-to-day basis. But
you can't do that, and when you have a rotation where nobody's projected to have better than a 3.51 ERA.
No way. No
That's
way.
not how
There
baseball games work. You're not going to shorten those games.
they there is there is this just general thought in baseball, this general belief, not even a belief, we know this to be true, is that you always have that one kind of stopper
Mm-hmm.
in your pitching rotation, a guy who stops the vibes, who stops the streak, the momentum starts and ends with that day's starting pitcher. And the guy that when you go out and takes the mound, that you have a chance of winning that game and you can almost guarantee it. Every team needs to have that one guy. They do not have that one guy, and that is
It's
they don't have the
Kodai,
guy.
like
It,
which
but
is
you say that,
crazy.
but it's also not like in
Yeah,
realistically, and that's what's so shitty about this is there's not one guy where Carlos Mendoza's going, all right, guys, it's going to be a great day. This guy's going 7, chances of winning is high. No, just no.
no, and maybe that's something we didn't really speak to in terms of the Braves when we were talking about them, because the Braves have those guys. The Braves have a Chris Sale coming off of Cy Young. The Braves have a Spencer Strider, who, yes, coming off of Tommy John, is still going to presumably
Sure.
be Spencer Strider and maybe make a run at 300 strikeouts. And those guys, it doesn't matter what their ERA is. Having somebody like that on your rotation, the hitters are going to hit better. The team's going to feel better on sale day and on Strider day than they do on any other day of the rotation. And when you don't have one to put behind a lineup, you're really, really like shelling out all of the money you can, Steve Cohen style, to make this lineup something that can cover for it. And taking a deeper look at the lineup, it's deep. It's really deep. In fact, there's people on here that I didn't realize were as productive as they are, that they get to carry into this upcoming season. We know about Juan Soto, projected 6.5 WAR. We know about Francisco Lindor. He could win an MVP any day now.
Mm-hmm.
He's projected for 6 WAR. Brandon Nimmo, I mean, is still a Brandon Nimmo guy. So put it this way: Francisco Lindor may have won an MVP in a lot of seasons last season, and he had a 125 WRC plus. Brandon Nimmo had a 120 WRC
Yeah.
plus. So like that's there. Mark Vientos is only 25 years old. He could make it happen this upcoming season. And not to put a ton of pressure on the young guy, but Luis Angel Acuna is somebody who's very young, has a lot of upside, and who knows, may see him, come to the big leagues and do a lot of good for them. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I think that this lineup is good.
I think it is too. I want to focus in on words, Anthony Words, the WRC plus for this team, because for those of you who maybe are not as in tune with baseball stats, especially WRC plus, obviously that's weighted runs created plus. Anything over 100 is X percentage points above average. So 100 is average. You want to be over 100. The way I always think about this, Parker, is if I'm constructing a team, I need my lineup 1 through 9 to all be over 100.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone in this lineup, minus Jose Siri in center, is over 100. That is a beautiful benchmark. That's their projection this year. Everyone's projected over 100. Jose Siri is projected at 87 for 2025.
And Jose Siri is going to give you lights out defense to compensate for that. Yeah.
Absolutely. His WAR is entirely defense. Entirely.
Yes.
And an expansive center field of Citi Field. It's beautiful. But I mean, the point remains the same, right? I mean, at what point is this hitting going to have to bail out the pitching every single night? We'll have to see. I do think, Parker, what gets very interesting here is I think there's a scenario where, and I don't want to get too much into our predictions here, but I think there's a scenario where the Braves or the Mets just get by in spite of their pitching, and Steve Cohen over this next offseason, 2025, 2026, is just going balls to the wall pitching. I foresee that happening.
I'm going to look it up right now. I don't know exactly. 2026 free agent class MLB. I'm going to see exactly who's available, because you make a great point.
Yeah.
If they can limp through this next season, it looks really it could be very good. Oh my God.
Oh no, bring it. What do you got?
Dylan Cease.
Oh shit.
Zach Gallen,
Ooh.
Framber Valdez, Seth Luco, Michael King, Jack Flaherty presumably will opt out if he's worth even signing at all. Shane Bieber has a player option. Shota Imanaga. Like there are guys
Ooh.
to go and get. Presumably, if Kodai Senga has a good season, he will opt out this upcoming year, so they will have to replace him. Walker Bueller's on a 1-year deal. There's guys. There's definitely guys out there to sign, and
Yeah.
basically everybody on the Diamondbacks. It looks like Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly are both free agents next season.
Wow. I mean,
Wow.
yeah, that's a hot pitching market pending obviously any extensions or options. But wow, that's really good. I mean, they could really find themselves in a good spot in 2026 regardless of 2025. That's good to know. Steve Cohen
Absolutely.
is going to spend money every offseason. They're going to sign players. It's inevitability. That's exciting. That's exciting. I like that.
Funny enough, we were talking about how the outfield market this season was super underwhelming. Next season, just to point out, Kyle Tucker, Kyle Schwarber, Cody Bellinger, if he opts out, Luis Robert, if he opts out, Tyler O'Neill, Cedric Mullins. There's some guys out here. Starlin
Oh,
Marte, which, I mean, he's already a Met, but yeah, interesting.
I could 100% see the Mets going after Kyle Tucker.
Oh,
That
man.
could you imagine that? I don't care where it's because you know what? The Mets are that team. Just get the best guys. We'll figure out where you play later. Just take my money.
Yeah.
Come play for me.
There's a roster spot on any team for Kyle Tucker. I don't care who your outfield is.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on. Let's move from the Braves. We'll talk about them, I'm sure, a little bit more here later. But let's move on to I said the Braves. You all know what I meant. I meant Mets. Let's go to the nation's capital to DC, where the Nationals are kind of on the uptrend slowly. They're getting there. They have a stock of pretty solid young players. Like I said, they're not quite there yet. But when you look at guys like CJ Abrams, Dylan Cruz, James Wood, kind of holding the top 3 spots in their lineup, I I like to explain them as they're the team in Major League Baseball today that doesn't look anything special, but are more likely to surprise you because of their sheer talent they have with all these young guys up and down their lineup.
James Wood sneaky made the top 100 players on MLB's top 100 that they're currently releasing. I think they're on like between 50 and 40 right now at the time of recording. I like this Nationals lineup. When you look at a team that added Nathaniel Lau, you already mentioned CJ Abrams. I am huge on James Wood. I absolutely love the guy. I think he's going to be a really good player for a long time. I am optimistic for the Nats. If they were in, I don't know, any weaker division, I would be more optimistic on them. They have a lot of tough competition in this division. I do think they're going to finish pretty low. I'm not going to give away my pick quite yet, but yeah, no, I think we're seeing a slower and less distinct Orioles type arc with these Nationals. I think as somebody that grew up in Virginia, I went to a lot of Nationals games. And they're a fun team when they're good. Like, remember how fun 2019 is, that whole postseason? It was like, oh my God, are these Nationals really going to do it? So I like them. I'm optimistic. I haven't even said a single number yet. And I think that's the point. I don't know that the Nationals are at the point where they're concerned about numbers at all. I think the Nationals are just fine doing Nationals things and letting their talent develop. Who cares whose WRC plus is above 100 right now? As long as they're making solid contact and having good at bats, that's the type of season I think we're going to see from the Nationals. Ooh, a cool win against this team. Oh, picked up a series against that team. Yeah. Number 1 overall pick coming around the All-Star break. Who makes the All-Star team? Well, we have multiple All-Stars. I think that's the type of stuff Nationals fans are looking forward to this year. And to be fair, that's a brand of baseball I've been watching for the last 6 years as a Red Sox fan. And you can have a lot of fun watching that baseball.
Yeah, you can. And like I said, and there's nothing more that I love about baseball than not even seeing your favorite team win, but more so seeing the athleticism that these guys have. And a lot of these young players are showing so many tools, a lot of 5-tool guys that really can do it all across the diamond. And when I look at a guy like a James Wood, a Dylan Cruz, like, I love to see just sheer skill. And when you look at these guys, they have a lot of players that are just the definition of an athlete. And I think that's where a lot of teams really struggle. They'll pick on a couple
Yes.
guys and they'll develop and they'll scout a guy and say, this guy has above average contact. This guy has above average power. And I don't think teams always focus on just athleticism as a trait, endurance,
No.
conditioning, athleticism. And this team has that going for them.
For sure, especially when you get young outfielders, guys who probably played shortstop their entire life. You're going to see a lot of cool stuff. I mean, not to always bring it back to the Red Sox, but we have currently a very exciting young core of outfielders between a Jaron Duran, a Cedar Rafaela, Roman Anthony, Christian Campbell, Wilyer Abreu. All these guys are athletes. Wilyer Abreu, not so much. He did win a Gold Glove last season, but the rest of those guys are just dudes you are fully expecting to see lay out, Superman catch everything that comes anywhere near them on a daily basis. And as a fan, that is compelling baseball to watch because every single ball that's hit to the outfield, you're like, who's making a play? So good for these Nats. I'm excited for their future. Like, check back in 3 years kind of thing and see where these guys are. Watch James Wood mess around and finish top 5 in MVP, and all of a sudden this team's going to be contending.
Love that. Couldn't agree more. All right, let's go ahead and wrap up our roundabout here with the teams and go to the Phillies. The Phillies, Parker, always keep it interesting. And let me tell you, there's nothing I've been enjoying more than seeing postseason baseball with the Phillies in it, because those games, these Phillies postseason games over the last handful of years have been something extra special.
For sure, this team is headed up, obviously, by Bryce Harper, guys like Alec Bohm, Bryson Stott. I mean, this Trey Turner. They have JT Realmuto is still behind the dish. He's still getting it done. And just the rest of this team, there's so many players that are so fun to watch play baseball. Nick Castellanos, Brandon Marsh, Max Kepler, Kyle Schwarber. Like, this team has it. And I think that that lineup and then the strength of their rotation is going to be super fun to watch this season. The bullpen took a little bit of a hit losing Jeff Hoffman to the Blue Jays, but I still think that they're going to have the damage that they need to get it done. These Phillies, I think it's because the environment of Philadelphia is so incredibly electric on most days, especially on the weekend and in the playoffs, that to me, if it came down to win one big game against anybody in baseball, I don't know if I would pick a team over the Phillies. If it came down to one environment, if you had to win a game at home against anyone in baseball, to me personally, that's the Phillies, and it kind of will always be until they prove otherwise. And maybe they have to you. Maybe they have proved otherwise by not being the team that, won the World Series when honestly they probably should have over the last couple of years, at least once. So I'm always high on the Phillies. I think that they have a really good thing going there. I'm a big Bryce Harper fan, and I'm interested to see what they do for sure.
Well, I mean, well said. Geez, I'm trying to think of what I can even add there, but I think we know the story of the tried and true story of the Phillies, and what I think sets the Phillies apart, particularly in this division, is we have often come back to in this division the disparities between lineups and pitching rotations. And when you look at the rotation for the Phillies, this is a all-star studded, postseason ready rotation, headlined by Zach Wheeler. You have Christopher Sanchez in there. Don't forget Aaron Nola, who always shoves and is reliable. Ranger Suarez, who is totally underrated, mind you.
So underrated, man.
So underrated. And then they did add Jesus Luzardo, which don't sleep on that move.
That's such a big ad, man.
It is. It is. I think he has so much potential. I don't even think he's scratched the surface yet of what he can do off the left side.
Neither do I. And he, fun fact, is projected for only a 1.4 WAR next season with a 4.36 ERA, according to Zips on Fangraphs. I just think that that's doing him a disservice. I think Jesus Luzardo is going to break out in a big way this season. But like you said, you don't you don't even need Jesus Luzardo on this staff for me to think that this team has a good thing going, especially
Yeah.
when like somebody gets hurt who's starting a game. Oh, Ty Walker. Okay, we're good. Like I think that that's super beneficial for Andrew Painter. Like what's going like there's a lot here in terms of hope and there's a lot here in this bullpen when you look at Matt Strom. Depending on who you ask, maybe an effective reliever and might be an absolute bum. To me, I think he's a very good reliever.
Yeah.
Jose Alvarado is here. There's a lot here. Jordan Romano, there's a lot here to be excited about. I think that they kind of have just enough of everything, in my opinion. They're not a perfect roster. I think their bullpen does have
No.
something to be desired. Their rotation's very good. Their offense, as we've seen, will just go cold for a week at a time, and every lineup's going to do that. So it all needs to kind of work out finally, and that's it might be just what I'm getting at is that it just hasn't fully worked out for this Phillies team at all
Right.
over the last few years. They've always been a team that's flamed out early in the playoffs, and everybody's sitting there with their hands in the sky like, oh my God, it's happened again. Personally, I think that if everything did go right, this is a top 3 team in baseball.
For sure. For sure. All right, Parker. Before we get into some bold predictions, which we always look forward to, why don't you go ahead and tell me how you think this thing's all going to shake out at the end of the season?
Okay, so I think that this season, the NL East is going to finish Phillies in first, Mets in second, Braves, Nats, Marlins rounding out the bottom 3. And that's probably chalk to how you did it as well.
Of course.
Yeah, because we've done that for every fucking division so far. But one thing I do want to bring up and I think is interesting to look at is the FanGraphs projections for this division, which have you looked at these yet?
They must have just came out because I have not seen the division ones yet. Here we go. Yep. Hold on.
FanGraphs Zips projection for the NL East has the Braves winning the division, not just winning, but by 6 games over
No.
the Phillies.
No.
I just don't see it, man.
No, I don't understand why. I thank you for pointing this out because I did not recognize this. This is brand new. They must have did this recently. Yeah, I'm not buying that. Hell no. No way.
I
No
don't
way.
see how you have the Phillies only winning 87 games. And look, predictions are always like super watered down, I would say. But I do not see how you have the Twins winning the Yankees winning 88 games and have the Braves winning 93.
Yeah, that's some at those computers. Them computers got it wrong. Let me tell you.
I think so. They're
Wow.
only the Braves are projected to finish 4 games behind the Dodgers in the NL.
All right, I need to mute this
I
computer.
don't know. I don't see it.
We need to go Office Space style on this computer.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right,
So you got
that,
Phillies, Mets, Braves, Nats, Marlins?
of course I do. Yeah, because we're basically the same mind, and we obviously keep it exciting here. Same shit, different day. So with that, let's go to the bold predictions because this is where it gets interesting. I'm gonna go ahead and start with my bold prediction because it involves the Mets. Now, you may recall, Parker, in 2023, the Braves did something interesting in the NL East. They were the last team to have 2 players hit 40 or more home runs in the same lineup. They had Matt Olson and they had Ronald Acuna Jr. do it in 2023, 40 plus homers. I think the next team to do that will be in the NL East in 2025. I think the Mets will have both Juan Soto and Pete Alonso hitting 40 plus home runs.
Wow. You think Pete's going to hit? I guess, yeah, Pete could hit 40 and Juan Soto could definitely hit 40.
He's done it a couple times. Yeah.
Yeah, they could definitely do it. That's a good one. I didn't even think about that. That will certainly make the division a lot more interesting.
Sure.
I guess I didn't really consider a world. Take this how you will. I didn't consider a world where Pete Alonso is like super clicks next season. To me, plausible. I think he's more worth the second year of that contract than he is the first year of that contract. Like we said, he gets the
Fair.
hometown opposite of a hometown discount because he's with the Mets. To me, Pete Alonso is like the second coming of Adam Dunn from the right side of the plate. I think
Oh
he's just going
man,
to be a
don't
big dude that
don't
hits
do
soon.
Adam Dunn dirty like that. Oh, Adam
Well, okay,
Dunn.
late career Adam Dunn, where it's like this guy's going to hit
Oh,
against one hand and he's going to do it
yeah,
pretty okay.
like White Sox Adam Dunn. Yeah, we're familiar with that.
White Sox
You know,
Adam Dunn. There you go. There you go.
goodness. What do you got?
Okay, so my prediction revolves around the Phillies, and I think this isn't like the most bold of predictions. But I think that without getting so the heart, this is going to sound super underwhelming, and I'm realizing it as I'm saying it. And the reason it's going to sound that way is because I don't want to get into like awards predictions or like World Series predictions because we're going to have an episode for that. But I think that the Phillies lead the league in doubles, and I think they do it by like 100 doubles. I think that this lineup smacks the shit out of the baseball. I know that they're in the same, they play baseball in the same hemisphere as the Los Angeles Dodgers, but I think that this has to be the year of the Phillies, and that's what makes this prediction bold. If this team is going to click, then their lineup has to absolutely rake. And I think that we're talking about when you look at it on paper. Bryce Harper hitting 40 doubles, Kyle Schwarber hitting 40 doubles, Nick Castellanos hitting 30 to 40 doubles, and Trey Turner getting in on all that action too. Alec Boehm maybe
Mm-hmm.
breaking out in a big way. It could happen, man. It could certainly happen. JT Realmuto's in a walk year. Like the motivation's there.
Yeah, I mean, if there was ever the ingredients to do it, it would be this, right? I agree with you. I think this will be the year they kind of go off and go crazy, and just go double happy. I do have one for the Phillies. I'm saving it, and I may just go there, but I'll save that for the next couple minutes here.
Okay.
I'm going to
All right.
go to the Nationals, and here's my thing with the Nationals. I think they're going to surprise folks. Now, they're not winning 90, 80 games. Everyone calm down.
No. We still
But
have them in fourth.
but I said they wouldn't win 80 games, but maybe they win 81 and go
Okay.
500 and shock everybody. And maybe you can do that. I think maybe they go 500, they go 81 and 81. Mike Rizzo's getting all excited. Okay. He's going ahead and getting all giddy because his Nationals look, ahead of schedule. Maybe you go and get a person at the trade deadline, see what you can do. A guy on 2-3 year deal. Maybe you go ahead and go into the offseason thinking, wow, I could really fortify this team. I think 2025, maybe they surprise some folks and they accelerate this a little bit.
I'll do you one better. I think that 4 teams in this division win 85 games.
Wow.
I think the Nationals could win 85 games. That'd be their absolute
Wow.
ceiling this season. Where are those games coming from, Parker? They're all playing the same teams. Fucking Marlins aren't winning more than 63 games, okay? Marlins aren't doing shit. They're going to lose quite a few baseball games, and they're going to lose almost all of them to their division opponents.
Poor Marlins. No wins for you. No wins
Nope,
for you,
no wins for.
Marlins.
I genuinely like this is a huge, crazy. This is a more bold prediction, I think, than my first one even. But yeah, the Nationals are projected right now at 73 wins, and if it all clicks, which a lot has to click, 85 wins is still like I think within reach, and the other 3 teams are all projected above 85.
Man, that is very, very interesting. Huh.
All right.
Do you have any more bold predictions?
I don't think so. I think this division, bold prediction that the Braves won't win 93 games. How about that? Maybe that's my bold prediction. I think this division is just going to be super close. It's going to be super close the whole season. I think we're like one thing I will give these Zips projections, having 2 teams straight right there at 87 games apiece is probably more accurate to what we're going to see from this division from top to bottom. I don't think anybody runs away with it, mostly because even though I said that I think the Phillies in their best day are top 3 team in baseball, you still got to play the Braves and Mets like 15, 16 times a piece. So yeah, it's going to be a tough year for the AL East, a fun year for sure. Like it always is.
100%. It's going to be something to watch. Always good games coming out of the NL East. I will end with this, Parker. My last bold prediction, and I'm doing a little bit of a sports crossover. This is a great sports crossover show. Today, we've already talked about basketball. I want to talk about football a little bit. and I'm going to go there. Okay.
Oh, okay.
I think this year is going to be the year of Philly sports. And I think the
Really?
Eagles are going to win the Super Bowl. And I think the Phillies are going to win the World Series. Take it to the bank.
Wow, we're doing
Take it
World
to the
Series
bank.
predictions here. We're doing World
Right,
Series.
right, right now. Is it me just being obnoxious? Absolutely. Am I going to change that when we make our predictions? Who the hell knows?
I
Maybe.
was
But
gonna say
right
this
now,
one's
I
not
just
binding.
no, it's not binding. I didn't even no nothing, no blood, nothing. But I just feel it in my gut that man, it's going to be the year of Philly sports. I feel it. I feel it.
I can see that. I think the Saquon Barkley goes absolutely nuclear in the playoffs, and I think that he wins them
Oh,
the Super Bowl single handedly. I don't know that there's another human being on the planet that can tackle that man in the Super Bowl. Yeah, so I think that the Eagles are going to go ahead and win the Super Bowl this year too. I need them to. I'm a Broncos fan. I cannot stand the Chiefs whatsoever. I really don't want to see them three-peat. So please, Philadelphia, do that for me. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, man, I think I mean I picked the Phillies to win the World Series last year, so I was picking the year of Philly before. It was cool.
You sure did. You sure did. And I hopped right on that bandwagon here today. So, folks, please make sure that you are subscribing to us on YouTube, catching all of our videos on YouTube. If you don't want to watch the full show, that's fine. We understand. We still love you. But watch the shorts. Go ahead and like them, comment, engage, share with a friend. Of course, you can find us anywhere you also listen to your audio podcast. So make sure you're following along here every week with Late Night Baseball. And we'll catch you next week. Take care.